For 23 years, I loved every minute in the classroom. Well, maybe not every minute, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. But what you find when you're a teacher is that if you really want to make a difference for the students you teach, you have to go where the decisions are. And those decisions are made by policymakers at the local, state, and national level. So I'm proud to be a representative of all of those folks who give so much each and every day to get their voice in the very halls where the decisions will be made that impacts the lives of every member of the National Education Association and the students we teach. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you here today. As you deliberate about the reauthorization of ESEA, I hope you spend some time reflecting on a very fundamental or basic question. What do you believe is the purpose of public education for the United States for today in the 21st century? Three things I would mention in the reauthorization. Number one, codify those things that we know work based on research and the people who work there. Children are not experiments. Policies on accountability, assessments, and transforming schools should follow research, not dogma. Number two, the federal government should only incentivize initiatives in which collaborative plans from beginning to end involve all essential stakeholders. In the last 25 years, one thing we know, as we look at places that succeed, there is a common thread that you must have collaboration. We cannot afford to fail. Our students cannot afford us to fail, and the status quo is unacceptable. And finally, in the true spirit of the original ESEA from 1965, federal law and regulations are the only way to eliminate vast disparities. The road is a difficult one, but it's worth the effort. And I want you to know that 3.2 million people stand ready to move on this journey and work with our partners to transform public education. Thank you, sir.
We had a goal one time. This country did. This Congress stated the goal of reducing, I think, elementary classes down to, I think in the early grades, less than 15, if I'm not mistaken. I could be corrected on that, but something like that. Do you find that as a factor, Mr. Van Roekel?
Absolutely. One of the longest-standing research projects came out of Tennessee. And at the beginning of that, all teachers and all students who were selected for this research were all totally done by random. And the only variable was the size of the class in K through 3. And they tried to keep it below 20. And they've done over a 25-year follow-up with all of these students by every major, high school graduation, college attending, graduation from college. By every one of those majors, they do better. Class size makes a huge difference, especially in those lower grades. And I can tell you right now, as you go across the country with the economic situation the way it is, and with states facing their biggest challenge in 2010-11, because the state stabilization funds that were the American Recovery Reinvestment Act will not be there. Layoffs are starting to come through. There are schools now with class sizes up to 40.
I think that link between education and the workforce is more important now than ever before as we face a crisis today in how many students are actually prepared once they get through school to get those jobs that we need them to have in their own communities.
Senator, I would say that you really incorporated that into your question. There is a need, I believe, for a solid curriculum that is broad. Yep. And I mentioned some of those in my opening, from foreign language, history, civics education, all of that is important. And it should be done in the context of 21st century skills. Creativity is something that's very much needed. Collaboration, which requires the interpersonal skills. Communication skills are getting more important, and it seems almost a contradiction in this age of technology that communication is more important, but it is. And then the critical thinking. Using these new skills in all of these subject matters, I think, is what we have to prepare students for.
My question to you is, what is getting in our way to scaling the successes that we know we have in the United States of America?
Senator, I would say number one, it's turnover. And especially in our high-need schools, the turnover of staff and of principals and superintendents, it's impossible to have an integrated, well-thought-out plan that continues on for such a long enough time to really impact it. That's why I talk so much about collaboration. And one of the things that happens in successful places, Syracuse, New York, where Say Yes to Foundation came in and they're changing a whole district, they do memorandums of understanding so that the management the school board and the union all sign on to that. So when one of the big three players changes, they can't suddenly go off in a new direction. There may be better ideas, but you have to come back and say, together, let's decide if there's a better place. I hope they honor and respect the voice of the people who spend all their time with the very students that we're trying to do more for and to change current reality. Status quo is not acceptable. We have to make changes. And I don't believe it's possible to do that without listening to the voice of the very people who deliver that education every single day.